Hello and welcome to lesson 23 of Learn New Testament Greek. This lesson concludes our going through John chapter 1. We'll look at verses 43 to 51, and the previous lessons came up to this point. So here we complete chapter 1, and so the lessons have done every verse in chapter 1, as well as some of the early lessons did odd verses from other parts of John's Gospel and a few from other parts of the New Testament. In future I plan lessons that will start into John chapter 2 and John chapter 3. So without further ado, let's get into John chapter 1, beginning at verse 43. So here we are, John chapter 1 verse 43. Te aporion ethelesen exelthen es ten Galilean, kai huriske Philippon, kai lege auto ho Jesus, akoluthe moi. So it says the next day he wanted, that in ending indicates the past, he wanted exelthen, to go out. So the ex means out, and elthein means to go. The ein ending indicates to go out. We just say to go. Eis ten Galilean, to the Galilee. So the form of this word is Galilea, and it has the en ending to show that it's governed by the eis. Kai huriske Philippon, and huriske, he finds Philip. Interesting thing here again, a switch to the present tense. He finds Philip. And again, I think that's probably mostly just a matter of style, but some of the commentators say this makes the narrative more vivid, and other more modern commentators trace different stages in the story, maybe a climax or something like that. But here I think we should say it's mostly just stylistic, and perhaps the same as we use it sometimes in English. He came to me and he says, "What are you doing?" So we sometimes put it in the present. In English it's making it informal and kind of a little bit more chatty. In this case, perhaps something similar, but perhaps just a matter of style and variation, and you're perhaps making it a little more immediate and lively. He finds Philip, so there's en ending here indicating that Philip is the object. Kai lege auto ho Jesus. Present tense carries on, and he says to him. Now the subject, Jesus. So this is the typical order, verb, and then the pronoun object, and then the noun subject. It's interesting too that Jesus, the subject, is only just introduced here. At the beginning of the sentence it says he wanted to go and he finds Philip, and only here does it say Jesus. In translation, in most languages, to avoid confusion, we'd probably want to pull the name Jesus back up to the beginning. Another interesting point here, he just says Philip. Even though this is the first introduction of Philip, he just says Philip. We might expect him to say he found a man called Philip, but he just says Philip. Evidently he's writing to people who are familiar with the other Gospels, and maybe to people who have actually met Philip. So he didn't need to say he found someone called Philip, but he found Philip, obviously someone that the readers are familiar with. And Jesus says, "Follow me." Now here is the word follow used in the technical sense of become my disciple, be my disciple. Follow me. It doesn't just mean tag along behind me, but it means follow me in the sense of be my disciple. And in Greek you always follow to someone. So moi means to me. Me, M-E, means me, but moi strictly means to me. But that's the way this verb works in Greek. You always follow to someone. In English, we just say follow me. Verse 44, and der ha Philippos apo Bethsaida ektes poleos Andreu kai Petru. Philip and Andrew are both Greek names. Interesting how much Greek culture had penetrated into the Jewish homeland that two Jewish boys should carry such names, although apparently a lot of Gentiles lived in Bethsaida. So this is what it says, was, however, but Philip from Bethsaida, from the city of Andrew and of Peter. So the genitive endings of, notice too here how apo and ek, although there is, in some contexts, there is a difference between these two words. Here they're used pretty much synonymously in the same meaning. Apo Bethsaida ek tes poleos. So I think it's just a variation in terms of the style. From Bethsaida, from the city of Andrew and Peter. Verse 45, Jurisque Philippos ton Nathaniel kai lege auto hon egrapsin Moses. Notice the double dot here indicates that those two vowels have separate sounds. So we say Moses, Moses. Double dots say don't run those two sounds together, but sound this one separate. Moses, Moses. Ento nomo kai hoi prophetai hurekamen Jesun huion tu Joseph ton apo Nazareth. So this is finds Philip, again Philip finds, but the normal biblical order, verb then subject. Philip finds the Nathaniel. So this is the object form. The object form is shown on the word the, but this original Hebrew name is left unchanged as it is in Hebrew. No ending is put on that. Nathaniel. Nathaniel is a Hebrew name meaning God has given, and we often shorten it to Nathan. It's the equivalent of the Greek Theodore, which has the same meaning given by God. Nathaniel has been identified with Bartholomew because in the other three Gospels Nathaniel isn't mentioned, but Bartholomew is. And Bartholomew is associated with Philip in these Gospels as Nathaniel is here. So Philip finds Nathaniel and says to him, whom he wrote, Moses. So we'd have to say, of whom Moses wrote. So, in fact, we'd have to say, the one that Moses wrote about in the law and the prophets. So, prophets is a subject going along with Moses, and the verb is not repeated. So, he's saying, the one whom Moses wrote about in the law and also the prophets wrote about him, we have found hurekamen. So, the K here indicates the perfect tense, which corresponds as a first approximation anyway to the English perfect tense using have. We have found. Jesus, son, huios means son. Here's the object form with an N. Huion to Joseph. So that's Joseph. Again, this is a Hebrew name. The ending doesn't change, but the ending on the article the changes, indicating its genitive of Joseph. Ton apo Nazareth, the one from Nazareth. So there we are, that's verse 45, 46. Kai epen auto Nathanael, and he said to him, Nathan, again, verb, pronoun object, subject, so we'd say, and Nathan said to him, Ek Nazareth dunatai ti agathon enai. From Nazareth can anything good be? So dunatai, this is the word from which we get dynamite, meaning power or capability. So he's saying, from Nazareth, can, T means something, or in this case in English we'd have to say anything. Can anything good be? And we'd probably have to say, we'd probably turn it around and say, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So obviously Nazareth was a very small town. I don't think it's referred to at all in the Old Testament. And Nathaniel, who came from Galilee, he'd obviously heard of it, but it had a reputation perhaps as a bit of a backwater. Maybe even it had a bit of a negative reputation. Probably would say just that it was such a small and obscure town. So he's saying, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Maybe he said it with a bit of a almost a chuckle or a bit of a laugh in his voice. Lege auto ha Philippos erhu kaide. So the square brackets indicate that this ha, the, is found in some manuscripts but not in others, and it's a bit of a toss-up whether it's to be included or not. So compromise, put it in square brackets. So says to him Philip says to him, erhu kaide, come and see. So this is the imperative form. We've met this verb before quite a few times, but this with the u ending makes it an imperative an imperative singular. Come you one person, and see. So this is see. Verse 47, Eden ha Jesus tan Nathaniel. So that's interesting. Philip said to Nathan, come and see, but the one who does the seeing here is Jesus. Jesus saw Nathan coming, erchamenon, pros auton, to him, kai lege periautu, and says about him. So the genitive here, because it's following the peri. In English we just say, he said about him. Ide alethos Israelites en ho dolos uk estin. See, or the old versions translate behold. Alethos, truly. Truly, this word is used sometimes as a translation of amen, when Jesus says amen, amen, truly, truly. Sometimes in Luke's Gospel it's translated alethos, truly. So we've met, I think, the noun and the adjective from this. The noun was aletheia. This is the adverb. Truly an Israelite, in whom dolos, guile, uk estin, not, is not. One interesting thing about this is here, this is kind of a by the way, a criticism of Jacob by Jesus. Jesus picks up the word used by Isaac in Genesis chapter 27 verse 35 in the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. The word used by Isaac to criticize Jacob's character. But Jesus only mentions it in passing in the context of praising someone else. Here's another interesting point. Israel, so that's the name of the country. Well, originally it was a second name given to Jacob. And notice the Greek ending here, ites. That's the Greek ending meaning person or person from. And we borrowed this ending in English, dropping off the S, when we say Israelite. That's where we get that ending from. Also Canaanite, Levite. The modern people call themselves Israelis. I'm an Israeli. So that it's an old E ending, or pronounced E spelled I. It's used, the ending's used fairly widely, for example, Pakistani, Iraqi. And I have a 19th century translation of the New Testament into Hebrew by Sarkinson and Gunsberg, and they use that E ending. But another translation that I have by a man called Delitzsch uses Ben Israel, a son of Israel, for an Israelite, and that's a much more Hebraic way of saying it. So coming now down to verse 48, Lege auto Nathaniel pothen me gnoskes, apekrithe Jesus kai epen auto pro tu se Philippon phonesai onta hupoten suken edon se. So says to him Nathaniel, pothen me gnoskes. Pothen literally means from where. Me gnoskes, do you know me? So from where, here as a first approximation, but here meaning how is it, or how come you know me? How do you know me? Or how do you know about me, perhaps we'd say. Apekrithe Jesus kai epen auto. Notice here's the full form of this speech introducer. Answered Jesus and said to him, quite a long form here, pro tu se Philippon, before, tu. Now, so this is the genitive form which we need following the pro. Before the phonesai, before, that's an infinitive, to call. So as first approximation it means to call, but we would translate it perhaps more like calling. Before the calling of you, Philip. So we have to say of you, but Greek just says you, calling you. Onta is being, hupoten suken edon se, under the fig tree. I saw you. I saw you. So let me see. Gnoskes, no. It's a favourite word of John's. He uses it twice as frequently as the other Gospels, but he never uses the noun gnosis, which the other Gospels use. Oh yes, another comment about the pothen. Pu means where. Let me just write that there. Pu means where, and then means from. So they've been joined and the u has dropped off. Pu, where. From where do you know me? Now just a comment about the sukain. That's fig tree, and from it we get the name sycamore. So there's the SYC. The U vowel sometimes becomes Y when it comes into English for various reasons. But sycamore means fig mulberry tree. So suke is the Greek word for fig. So moving on, verse 49, Epikrithe auto Nathanael, Rabbi, sue hahuios tu theu, su basileus e tu Israel. Answered him Nathaniel, Rabbi. So this is rabbi, as the word has been borrowed into English, originally coming from Hebrew. You are the Son of God, huios tu theu, su basileus e tu Israel. Notice how the order is changed a little bit. Su e hahuios, su basileus e tu Israel. You are the Son of God, you are the King of Israel. And I think if we were translating this, we would put an exclamation mark. Notice how there's not all that much punctuation in Greek. The semicolon is used for a question mark, and we have a full stop and a comma, and that's about all the punctuation that's used. In modern English we have one or two more options, and one of them here is the exclamation mark, which I think is appropriate here for a statement like this being made by Nathaniel. Verse 50, Epikrithe Jesus kai epenauto, hoti epon soi hoti eidon se hupokato te sukes pistues, medzon tuton opse. Answered Jesus and said to him, hoti because. So there should be an apostrophe here bringing in the H sound. It's often dropped when it's a capital because there's no room in the typeface to put it in. Hoti, hoti. So here's hoti in two meanings. The first meaning here is because, and the second meaning here is like that, introducing what was said. Because I said to you that I saw you under the fig tree, you believe. Pistues, you believe. Question. It's interesting here to notice how John, often when he repeats phrases, he will change them just a little bit. This is common for him to repeat a phrase and then change it a little bit. Hupo ten sukein in verse 48 becomes hupokato te sukes in verse 50. So with hupo has to be followed by the accusative ending, the object ending. With hupokato it has to be followed by the genitive. So you can see hupokato comes from hupo. Anyway, there's the hupo part, and it's just got a kato on it. And so tein sukein has to change to te sukes, but exactly the same meaning, just stylistic variation really. You believe. Mezzo tuton opse, greater than these, you will see. You will see. Oh yes, one more point here. Basileus. So this means king, and from it we get Basil. The name Basil comes from it, so it means king. Down to verse 51. Kai lege auto amen amen lego humin. Amen, amen. And he says to him, amen, amen, I say to you, truly, truly. In verse 47 we had alethos, and like I said, Luke sometimes translates this by alethos. But here, John gives he just copies over the exact Hebrew and Aramaic word that Jesus used. Truly, truly, in truth, I say to you. Now here's an interesting point. In verse 50 it's soi, which is used singular, but here's you plural. That's singular and that's plural. You singular and you plural. English is a very ambiguous language. It's quite unusual among the languages of the world that it just has the one word you, which could mean you, one person, two people, or any number of people. And here the Greek, which has a singular and a plural, makes the difference. So here in verse 50 he's talking just to Nathaniel, but in verse 51 now he's now talking to all the people, or all the disciples probably in this case. So truly I say to you, opsis there, and this is a plural ending as well, you will see. Notice here's opse with a singular ending, you singular will see, and here's opsis there, you plural will see, ton uranon aneogota, opened, you will see the heaven opened. kai tus angelus tu theu, and the angels of God, anabainontas kai katabainontas, ascending and descending. So ana means up and kata means down, and bainontes means going. So in English we could say going up and going down, or ascending and descending. Epi ton huion tu anthropo, upon the Son of Man. So Son of Man is the name Jesus uses for himself. In Aramaic it meant simply man. A son of man is just simply another way of saying man. But it was also, interestingly, it was also God's pet name for Ezekiel. If you read the book of Ezekiel, God calls Ezekiel Son of Man all the time. So the disciples might have remembered that, but I think it would have been some time before they would have linked the name with the messianic figure in Daniel chapter 7, verse 13 to 14. Probably when they first heard it, they would have probably just thought on it just in the normal sense, not normal Greek, but to Jewish people speaking Greek, they would have used this just to mean person. And the Hebrew translations that I have of the Greek New Testament, on quite a few occasions where the Greek simply says man, they put it Son of Man, because that was just a common idiom, just meaning person. So I think at first when they heard that, they would have just thought he's just saying upon the person, although it's a little bit unusual perhaps to refer to yourself in the third person, to refer to yourself as the man or the person. And then perhaps thinking about it a little bit, they might have remembered how God uses that name for Ezekiel, who was of course a major prophet, and probably not too much later would they have linked it with the messianic figure in Daniel 7, 13 and 14. So there we have it. That brings us to the end of John chapter 1. Several interesting points there when Jesus calls his first disciples.